Hello and welcome back to East Haven County in the southeastern part of Massachusetts. In the most recent episode, we developed a resort town out here on this tiny cape or peninsula and used a pretty funky mix of some of the primarily European motel assets in combination with some of the waterfront assets and some of the bigger hotels to try and kind of replicate the resort town look that you'd find on like Nantucket Island or some of the peninsulas in this part of the US. Generally, I am pretty happy with how it's turned out. It hasn't really been populated yet because the simulation hasn't run for a long time. But I did have a question for you guys, and that was some suggestions for a name for this place and maybe a backstory. And I want to thank you guys so much for all the nice suggestions. People got really creative. I think in the end, this one just really hit the spot, I think. So we're gonna name it Cape Rose. I'm just gonna rename it now. Yoink, after a Dutch explorer from the town of Roosendaal. I know I butchered that, but I hope it don't cause too much controversy when I say that Dutch is just as quasi a language as Danish is. Anyways, it was discovered in 1607, shortly after New York was discovered, which is pretty interesting because Nantucket Island was discovered 5 years prior in 1602 by an Englishman, I think. But anyways, we've got a name now, a pretty fitting name for the overall theme as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. In today's episode, we are gonna move beyond Cape Rose and develop some of the surrounding areas on this big island here, creating some hopefully really beautiful vacation home areas, but we'll also have some people that live here full-time. They're probably pretty wealthy. It's gonna be a quite expensive area to live in due to the natural beauty and the big lots the houses are gonna occupy, and I'm hopeful this is going to support Cape Rose much better because the game is telling us that there's not just a lack of labor due to people not taking jobs out here, but there was also, I guess it's gone now, but some of the commercial establishments also complained that there weren't any customers. Alright, so I think for starters, we're gonna just do a bit of infrastructure upgrading. I've called this the Cape Rose Express for now. And these national roads we just kind of quickly mapped out in the previous episode so that we kind of had an idea of what we had to work with. But I think the main stretch here of the Cape Rose Express that crosses with the bridge here and connects up to the larger city of Chatham Bay is due for a little overhaul just to make it look a little more interesting. These two-lane national roads do tend to look a little boring. So first things first is just removing much of it, and then I'm going to convert it into it's still going to be a two-laner, but it's going to be composed of two separate one lane, one direction highways. Okay, we're just going to start removing this, and then hopefully it's going to make sense in just a second, because I'm hopeful that I can use the Move It mod's manipulation features to try and create like an interesting road layout. So having deleted the main bulk of it, we're gonna move in and grab the one lane, one-way highway, go into parallel mode, and I'm hopeful that, 0.5 is sufficient as far as the distance goes. So we are just gonna map this out, and we can follow the power lines here actually, fortunately, because we plopped them down in the previous episode. But of course we're gonna have to recreate them. But they do provide a bit of an outline. I think we're gonna move over here and branch off from this segment now. And it's not gonna let me snap in the same way as it did before, unfortunately. So something like this is probably fine. Then we'll just go for a straight segment that kind of follows the power lines until about here. And then it should be a simple matter of connecting this up. And then it's just a matter of removing the trees and rebuilding the power lines. But first we'll of course have to connect up to the regular two-lane segment here. So I'm gonna disable parallel mode, create a node here, and then I'm hopeful that this is gonna be a relatively straightforward branching operation. Moving that in there and this down here, and then replacing this. And that was pretty straightforward. Of course, gonna do the very same thing over here. Gonna move in, and I guess it depends on whether we can just branch these directly into the roundabout. Let's see if that's gonna work. Guess that is actually gonna work. Although I might disable snapping and just add a bit of curvature here to really connect it. And I think the roundabout is either due for an upgrade, or alternatively we're gonna use move it now. So if we hold down Alt and click, we enter manipulation mode, which should enable us to, let's see, should be able to grab this node here. We'll start with this one. And then if we hold down Alt and drag, we can really manipulate the node here. Something like this, and we'll have to do the same down here. And I think this is just fine. It's a sort of a middle thing between the smallest roundabout and the next smallest one. The circle here is still the same size, but there's, you know, a bit more space here, so there's a bit more in terms of gentle curves, really. And then we'll probably just need to do a little change to the bridge here. A few of you were quick to point out in the last episode that, I mean, much of this steel structure is underwater, which is probably not ideal and looks a bit weird, so we're just gonna upgrade it to a regular segment. And I've renamed the whole thing the Cape Road Express, all the new segments as well, so everything's looking good so far. And we're just gonna be redoing this crossing and play a bit more with Move It to hopefully create a bit more of an interesting crossing than this one. So let's see, we're gonna hold down Alt once again to allow for manipulation. Then we're gonna start by manipulating these, I guess you'd call them subnodes, to get some ramps created. And then if we grab these from the crossing road and bring them up, things are gonna start looking a little more interesting. And I can use these, you know, small markings that are automatically generated to kind of be my guidelines, which is really cool. So we can create something like this. And then there's actually also just a set of nodes in here. They're kind of hard to see, but I can kind of manipulate these as well to make the center a bit more smooth as well. But gotta be careful. If I move over this, you can see we get a lot of graphical glitching and stuff, so I imagine things can be a little crash prone if we're not careful. And we're gonna have to monitor the traffic and see if we have some actual traffic issues when cars enter this junction, because in Cities Skylines 1 at least, if you have you know, if you manipulate the nodes too much, then traffic is gonna act super wonky. And then for the final touch, I'm just gonna upgrade this to a 3-lane 2-way highway, adding in the extra slip lane. We're gonna do the very same thing over here, although we're just gonna drag a segment out at first. Something like this, yeah. Actually, we probably should do a super node here, because I mean, I don't expect a ton of traffic out here, but it is kind of awkward that, you know, if you're turning left here or turning left here, then you can kind of hog up the, you know, straightforward lanes. And we've also got 2 nodes here. So if we check with node controller, we see 2 nodes here, so it is probably gonna cause a bit of issues in here. And it's something that is actually fixable. There is a specific technique we can use to kind of merge this as a single node. So what we're just gonna go ahead and do is remove these road segments. Then we're just gonna grab this 2-lane segment here, bring that through, and then I'm gonna kind of align in the middle of our 2 roads here and just bring that through as well. And just gonna make sure I get it all completely right. Then we're gonna create a roundabout in here, and I'll remove this segment and this one, of course. Then we'll grab our dual lanes and just gonna wait, these aren't 1.5. They certainly should be. Yeah, they are. Okay. We're gonna grab these and we're gonna just bring them through or into the roundabout at a 180-degree angle, like this. Then we can remove all this junk we've got over here. And I see we need a better connection here, but that shouldn't be a problem. Then we can grab these, of course. We are probably just gonna need a bit of a curve. And then we can connect up to this segment here. So now we've got a roundabout, and hopefully this works, or it's gonna be embarrassing because I haven't really created these before. But if we bulldoze this object and check with move it, we've got a single node now. And of course the power of that is that we are not gonna have traffic issues or clipping in the middle here. And it's going to allow us to create some pretty cool looking designs here if we use the manipulation mode. So if we go ahead and grab this and move that out, then we can see a small slip lane automatically being created here. And if we grab this segment and move that down, we get an additional slip lane here for right turns. Gonna be the very same thing over here. And we can kind of align it so that it's symmetrical. And then by dragging this segment, we kind of get the same thing here. Look at that beauty. Now what this really enables us to do is to upgrade segments to 2 lanes to get that real dedicated slip lane on either sides, and we get something that looks like this. Which is very, very pleasing to look at. And, you know, from a gameplay perspective, also much more efficient than the setup we had before. And the game has even figured out only to add yield to the crossing road here and kind of have, you know, let the highway have priority. So, very nice. And then for the real final touches, if we move in and grab our key here and just add that to one of these, it could be this segment or this segment right here. Let's see. I'll probably add it to the 1-lane segment here on either side. Then we get barriers in here to, I don't know, kill people if they drive wrongly. And now I think it's time to actually start creating some of the small roads that will have some houses directly connected to, and where we'll have some dirt paths even kind of branching off from. So there'll be collector roads basically. So I think we're just gonna swing one through here and then just bring it sort of alongside the coastline here, at least up till about here. Then we'll make a turn and connect to the main road again. And then I'll branch out with some dirt roads. I saw there are quite a few areas that basically just have pretty nice houses even connected through dirt roads. No actual pavement or anything, and I understand why. It really is quite fitting given the natural scenery of the area, and that there's a lot of stuff that isn't really developed in these areas, you know, that just consist of, you know, nature and foresty bits. Anyways, let's move alongside the coastline down here. Go for a bit of a straight segment here, which we can then end in a small cul-de-sac. And we'll just branch off and get a connection going down here. Now, of course, we've got 2 nodes here, which is what we don't like. So let's just get that fixed real quick. Shouldn't take too long. We've already got one of the roads. And then if I can just align this between these segments here, turn this into a roundabout, then hopefully it's gonna be pretty easy just connecting these segments up with some straight pieces and get a single node. And that actually is a single node, it seems. I didn't even have to remove the roundabout. And of course, this is gonna allow us to make it a little more interesting. I think we're just gonna go for this. Okay. Let's continue mapping out some of the roads here. Alright, this is the result of our initial road layout. Taking a little look, just tried to mix and match some areas that are a little more gritty, some that are more swoopy and curvy, adding in some of these dirt paths as well, with inspiration from actual residential or vacation home streets on Nantucket Island and Martha's Vineyard as well. And just a few like small interesting crossings here and there just to kind of mix it up and give it a bit of additional personality, I guess. But I think this is fine for the scope of this episode. What I want to do right before we get into actually starting to place down some of these beautiful houses is I want to create a few like inland lakes. I think we'll have one around here and one around this open space here. So this is also a feature, geographical feature that's pretty prevalent in this island, peninsula heavy part of Massachusetts. So it's something I'm going to utilize as well. And generally, I just love, which I guess you can kind of tell from choosing to play on this map, that I just love the way water interacts with the rest of your city and how it creates limitations basically for how you're gonna build and expand. So we're just gonna create like a really shallow lake here, 2 of them of course, and I think for this one a feature we'll have is like a small island in the very middle of it, but otherwise we're just gonna kind of follow the road guidelines here for the scope of the the lake, because it probably makes sense that the lake was here before any pavement was put down. And we might do something like this and then see if these small islands will survive after we do a bit of smoothing out. But we can of course reduce the strength to ensure that they will. So just trying to make these edges a little more smooth, and then reducing the brush strength for these small islands here. And I bet if I right click and grab this this height level, then that's also going to be sufficient for creating the lake over here, because generally the map or this island here is very flat. There are very few contour lines in the interior of it. Of course it's a bit different when we get to the coast. We've got a few dunes and whatnot, but generally speaking it's very flat, and that's pretty easy to work with from like a terraforming perspective as well. I'm gonna make this a bit of a bigger island, but still keep these, a lake I mean, but still keep these smaller islands in here. And then I might do like something that looks a bit marsh-ish, if I can get that to actually work. I'm just gonna go a bit random at it here, trying to make it a bit rough. The shoreline at least, so that we get a bit of an interesting look in the end. But let's see if we can just smoothen this out a bit without removing any of the islands, and just making sure that the sides here are smooth. And in this particular case, getting rid of all this in terms of trees as well. We'll of course replant that after we place down our water source, disable Anarchy, so that we ensure we don't really plant a ton of trees on the very bottom. Alright, it's time to get some water in here. So jumping into a water tool, we're gonna go for the lake configuration, and it's way too big. That's gonna cause issues, but 20 is probably fine. And then we'll need to designate height of the water surface. So the very bottom we're at 863, and here we're at 869. So it's actually gonna be 6 meters deep, which is much more than I thought anyways. But I guess if we go for like a contour level around 868, then that's probably a little too little. So maybe if we just move down there so slightly to 867.5, then hopefully that's gonna be sufficient. And then a radius of 25 or something like this. I'm hoping that's gonna do the job. We're of course gonna place a source over here as well. And then if you're a regular viewer of my content, you'll know I jump into simulation, go down to water, and then I increase the water simulation speed. The game is going to lag a ton while this is on, so you can't really play, but it is going to, yeah, as the title kind of suggests, make the water speed much quicker, so that you don't have to sit and wait for 2 minutes to get an idea of if you missed on the level you wanted. And it suddenly seems I kind of miscalculated the diameter for this lake here. Should have known, because it's actually, I mean, it's quite a lot smaller. So I'll just be reloading my save, and then everything is magically fixed. And would you look at that, it's magic. We'll grab bushes, these 5 types. Go kind of big on the brush size, and then disable Anarchy. We'll go for all sizes except for the really big ones, if that even matters. And then we're gonna spam. Then we're going to move on to our spruces. We'll have a couple of different variants, including the dead one. And then I'm going to move the brush down to a very small size. Then I'm gonna enable Anarchy and just create some really dense clusters of sprues, very close to the lakes. And you gotta be careful when placing these with Anarchy on, because obviously you can end up placing hundreds of trees at the very same spot, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, let's get a few placed on these small islands as well. I imagine that these would be kind of fun trying to swim to, or even build like a little cabin if you're allowed to. And I think we're gonna keep these, just maybe add a few bushes and stuff to these tiny, I mean, they're not even islands, right? They're just about poking through. There you go. And I think the final thing, and we are in the nitty-gritty stuff now, would be some, but it's not stone, is it rock? Yeah. Just adding a level of random rocks just alongside the coastline. And I have Anarchy on here as well to ensure that a few of them are placed on the seafloor, so that there's like a smooth transition. And just like that, we have two nice lakes, which once again doesn't just add some natural beauty, but it also reduces the amount of area we have to develop and kind of frames in some of the remaining areas. So that's why I love to work with these lakes and coastlines and mountains in general. Anyways, it's due time that we start placing down some houses, and we're going to, at least for the very beginning, be manually plopping down some houses so that I get exactly the type of houses I want. The issue with zoning an area like this is that the buildings are gonna spawn as level 1, and I'll have to really get the land value raised a lot to get it to upgrade and ensure that the people that move in have a lot of disposable income that they can use to upgrade their buildings. And the fact that this is a beautiful area near a coastline is just not really enough. I'll have to provide tons of services and parks and whatnot to probably really like simulate that this is a wealthy area. But that's just, it's not gonna be how we're gonna approach this. There's not gonna be a ton of services out here. That's not really why you choose to live out here. Or, I mean, half the people out here are vacationing anyway, so they don't really care about that because they have vacation. So we are going to plop buildings, is what I'm trying to say. So obviously we're gonna go for some low residential stuff, and I'll be starting with some of the nicer houses. So I'm gonna start out with some level 5s, and for the size of the houses I probably don't want anything that's only 2 tiles wide, so 3 is our like where it starts. That's the minimum, so to say. But I'm not gonna specify either European or North American. I'm gonna mix and match because many of them are generic enough that we can use them throughout the region here. And then something I'm going to do is I'm actually going to keep snapping on, and then probably just use move it to individually align them. Oh wait, that's kind of double work. Let's just place them manually. And I'm gonna place some of them at different angles because they don't have to be like completely straight. This guy's complaining. There you go. No more complaints. And I'll have about 2 tiles between these houses, or thereabouts. And by just adding in a few angles, I feel it looks a little more realistic when it's not completely straight. And obviously I'm gonna pause because they don't have proper service coverage out here, so I'll have to fix that. But I think we can jump down here then. But maybe go for a level 4 as we are now closer to the highway, or the main road that cuts through here. So that is probably just a little less desirable. And here's a good here's a good look at one of the issues in this game. Why will the game not allow me to place the house here unless I have Anarchy on? It's pretty weird. But we do have Anarchy, so I guess in the end we don't really care. And the houses can be placed a little closer to each other out here as well. Since the land here has probably been a bit cheaper to buy and develop on. There's a bit longer distance to the bay and the beach here, and there's a bit more noise pollution from the cars. So if we move back here, we're gonna go level 5 and 4 tiles deep. I don't think, do we have... Okay, we also have some really thick... Oh wait, that's the... Yeah, this would be a good fit. Never mind. There we go. So let's get some of these bigger ones in here. And then something I've kind of noticed is that there'll be a few places in these areas where you have some really big mansions, but they're not really concentrated in like a specific development where all the houses on that particular road is big mansions. At least that's not a very frequent thing. They're kind of like scattered all around, and I'm gonna try and just see if I can mimic sort of that style by just adding them in here and there, some of the big mansions that we do have available. So this one is an example, you know, where we can place a nice big mansion here at the end of this road that, you know, obviously is just a bit more fancy than the rest of the houses here. And some of these are just ridiculous. Why would you ever need this much space? These guys, tennis court facing the waters. I mean, why not? Maybe here. Grab this. Oh wait, one of these were even nicer. This one maybe. Get that placed here. And then maybe just having this fancy one right here. Cool. And then I'll just have some regular level 5s kind of mixed in. But if we take a look at this area, it's yeah, I mean, these people, they earn money. And these guys went all things, wow, with the feng shui. That's oh man, there's something wrong with me. Anyways, let's get in a few more homes here. I guess we can just about squeeze in an additional house here, even though it is going to look comically small next to the neighbors, but hey, sometimes it be like that. So before we do any more of this manually plopped individual detached house development, we're gonna do a different type of development as well out here. This is not something that is directly inspired by anything on any of these islands we've been taking inspiration from so far. It's just because I kind of like how these things turn out when I create them, how they look. And so what I basically just want to do is like make you know, a single developer area, mass built basically. So just gotta find something that looks a little nice and relatively modern as well. And preferably not too wide. 2.4 is probably gonna be fine for what we actually want. And then maybe I'm just gonna place them at like a bit of an angle. Make it look a little more interesting, so I wonder if I can place them all like this. Have a bit of distance in between, and then make sure that they're all slightly twisted. I say that, but this one is gonna be placed pretty much facing the road perfectly. So I'll just try this and see how it actually turns out. So this is the first row, so to speak. And it is pretty nice looking. So I'm going to fill out the remainder as well. Sweet. And then for these houses and probably a couple of, or many actually of the other assets I'll be placing out here, I'm going to remove this well manicured lane. I don't think it fits in all that well with the type of environment we have on these islands here. And this is one aspect in which the prop variety system in Cities Skylines 2 really pays off. So I mean, these sheds are, and the pools of course, are a part of like every single building, but I think that makes sense given that it's a single developer that built all of it. But generally the system with the variety in props is just really nice, as it of course helps just add a bit of variety to whatever you're building. We're gonna expand this area a bit and just fill up Pine Lane as well. So we've got a ton of buildings in place now, and I think I'm gonna pause the development of more houses now because we've kind of satisfied our demand. At least we've got a ton of unoccupied buildings. I've created a district here just to showcase that, you know, only 6 households have actually been bought ever since we built Victoria Glen, which we might have to call something else. But I guess my point is that most of these homes are actually empty, and it's gonna take a little while for like the simulation and the demand to kind of catch up and populate them, which I think is perfectly fine. So we're gonna jump into a bit of detailing, and something I'd like to do is create some basic paths that kind of move from Crest Lane here and then down until this kind of rocky beach we've got going here. So I'm going to grab the oil surface because I think that's the best fit. It's you'll see when I start creating it. So I think we can create a path down here so I can just kind of showcase you guys what I mean. So I'm just gonna create like a really snaky path that kind of moves through many of these bushes and whatnot. Connects up to the street here. And I'm trying to kind of make it as rugged as possible, adding in a ton of these small nodes, I guess you could call it. And then let's connect up, and it's gonna look something like this. So the transition down here is maybe a bit weird. I might kind of do that in other ways to see if it looks better, but I think at least from afar it does the job. And we might actually just end up using this ore surface for much of the beach down here, if that's the better solution. But let's try and I can try and just create like an additional path where I don't really move the path into the water. And that might just look a little better. I don't know. From afar, I think it looks pretty good. So we're just gonna move ahead and create a few of these throughout. I don't want like each house to have like a private path from their backyard and to the ocean. That's a little too exclusive and non-public friendly for me. So these are public paths that essentially anyone can use. You'd probably just use it to take a walk here. It's not really a beach for like playing and tanning because it's not all that wide. You've got some proper beaches out here, and we're gonna create a road and some parking lots to enable the easy access for this beach in some point in time. And I guess over here I'll just create like a path through this area leading down to the sort of marshlands we've got here. Just see if I can move through all the bushes here. So I think they've turned out all right, especially from afar. They do look pretty natural, I think. Although they're quite sandy, you know, next to the grass, but oh well, it's never really gonna be perfect with the restrictions we've got. And I think over here we've got kind of a weird, crazy path through the bushes, but overall it's, you know, just trying to work with what we've got to kind of add that extra detail. Anyways, I think we're gonna wrap up the build here with a tennis club. It's just a spontaneous idea I just got. So let's see, we might just create it over here really, and we're gonna use one of the signature buildings for the like clubhouse, and something that's not too crazy. It could be something like this. I think that would actually be fine. Just get that placed. And we're probably gonna need a bit of parking, maybe over here on the backside. And then I wonder if, yeah, I don't even have the tennis courts unlocked. So it's finally time to spend some of these points on some sports parks. And we're probably grabbing large parks as well, seeing as I still have 26 points left. So quite a bit of points to use. Anyways, let's move in and grab our tennis courts. I'm just gonna clean this up for you. And I'm gonna make sure I have as much distance from the road as possible. Something like this. And then I might do them in... I think I'll have some paths in between all of them. We've got 3 here. And we might be able to squeeze in a few more. So I'm just gonna do that and then change the layout of Green Lane that we're obviously gonna trespass on right now. I'll do this and then we'll remove Green Lane and create another road instead. And we don't have to adhere to the snapping and move this close. We want to have some distance here. There you go. And then let's just create a bit of an interesting road layout here. Something like this. And then we'll of course need some paths. And I'm wondering if the oil dirt paths that we've already used would actually be our best bet here, or if we should just use the regular paths. Would probably use a pavement path, I imagine. Ooh, whoops. I'm gonna try that again. Alright, and then we've got a bit of space for parking here. But before we build the parking, I'm going to remove the surfaces here. I don't really think they make a whole lot of sense. And then we're just gonna run a path through here. Just like that. Let's move in and grab some parking. I actually scratched that. We'll do this in a bit of a different way. We'll move to about here for this segment, and then we'll make a segment here as well. And then we'll get a connection going. We'll grab our good old pavement 01, which will hopefully snap to our parking lots. Oh yeah. Sweet. Let me just see if I might be able to steal an arrow. Get those in place as well. And I'll have to steal a street lamp as well. Not that I ever really play at night time. And then we're gonna get a bit creative, because there are these kind of barriers here that don't really make much sense now that we've removed the surface. So we're going to go into simulation, make sure we have the tennis court selected. Then we're gonna enable debug toggle, go back to UI bindings, find action selection, and then we should be able to select each of these and delete them. Delete every single one manually. Yeah, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And I think that concludes the tennis club build for now, at least. Don't want to go too heavy on the detailing, because I'm just gonna set an unhealthy precedent for the remainder of the series. So I think I'm just gonna give this its own little district, because it always looks kind of cool when, you know, the names of special areas kind of poke through. Do that. So whatever we name Victoria Glen, we'll name this as well, as this is Victoria. You know, we'll just call it Victoria Beach, I think. Tennis Club. Oh yes, and we'll name this Victoria Beach. So that is gonna be a wrap for this episode. The demand meter is telling me that I should probably focus on something else than low density detached housing in future episodes, but we'll see. We've pretty much satisfied our current demand, at least, and if we check Victoria Beach, we can see that it's gonna take a bit of time before these areas really fill out. The two other districts here, Pinewood Dale and Briarwood Junction, are not gonna continue being named this, so if you've got any suggestions, then feel free and I'll try to get them renamed in the coming episodes. So I'm gonna shoot some cinematics for you guys now, and of course thank you all for watching and all the support here on YouTube, as well as over on Patreon, and maybe do a little Patreon plug in a video, which I rarely do. I do have a Patreon where I frequently upload sneak peeks and tons of screenshots, and also frequently have early access to videos. The tiers are all the same, they're just different prices depending on how much you want to or can support, and the lowest tier is $1 a month, so that's pretty accessible, I think, and it helps me you know, with my coffee addiction. So that's the plug. Anyways, gonna get to the cinematics, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye.